Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for January the 28th. Today we are reading together in Genesis chapter 34. Today is January 28th, and the text is Genesis 34. Hope that you've had a great week and hope that your weekend has gotten off to a great start. Let me get the text of Genesis 34 up on the screen for us. This is a difficult chapter, and it's not a chapter that is unique to the story of Abraham's family. We see quite a few instances of sexual deviancy and bad behavior throughout the narrative of Genesis, and specifically again throughout the story of Abraham's family, going back to the poor decision making with Abraham and Sarah concerning Hagar. Now we'll have it here with Dinah. We're going to have a little bit later on in chapter 38, I believe it is. Chapter 38, the story of Tamar and everything that happens with her. There's just a number of issues that take place within this story. So as we're thinking about the storyline of the Messiah coming into the world, we're recognizing that it's not a neat and clean storyline. There are some really low points in the story, and yet God continues to persevere and to continue to accomplish his will, even with such instances of unfaithfulness and bad decision-making within the text. So let's read here Genesis 34, and then we'll think a little bit about what we have here within this chapter. And I give you a little reason why I don't necessarily like some of the translating that's going on here within this text. I think that it could have been probably rendered a different way to be more appropriate to what I think is actually going on here within this particular text. Genesis 34, verse number 1, Leah's daughter Dinah, whom Leah bore to Jacob, went out to see some of the young women of the area. When Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, who was the region's chieftain, saw her, he took her and raped her. He became infatuated with Jacob's daughter Dinah. He loved the young girl and spoke tenderly to her. "Get me this girl as a wife," he told his father. Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were with his livestock in the field, he remained silent until they returned. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor came to speak with Jacob. Jacob's sons returned from the field when they heard about the incident. They were deeply grieved and very angry, for Shechem had committed an outrage against Israel by raping Jacob's daughter, and such a thing should not be done. Hamor said to Jacob's sons, "My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. Live with us, and the land is before you. Settle here, move about, and acquire property in it." Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Grant me this favor, and I'll give you whatever you say. Demand of me a high compensation and gift. I'll give you whatever you ask me. Just give the girl to be my wife." But Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully, because he had defiled their sister Dinah. "We cannot do this thing," they said. "Giving our sister to an uncircumcised man is a disgrace to us. We will agree with you only on one condition: if all your males are circumcised as we are, then we will give you our daughters. Take your daughters for ourselves, live with you, and become one people. But if you will not listen to us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and go." Their words seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The man did not delay doing this, or the young man did not delay doing this, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most important in all his father's family. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city. "These men are peaceful toward us," they said. "Let them live in our land and move about in it, for indeed the region is large enough for them. Let's take their daughters as our wives and give our daughters to them. But the men will agree to live with us and be one people only on this condition: if all our men are circumcised as they are. Won't their livestock, their possessions, and all their animals become ours? Only let's agree with them, and they will live with us." All the men who had come to the city gates listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and all those men were circumcised. On the third day, when they were still in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords, went into the unsuspecting city, and killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with their swords, took Dinah from Shechem's house, and went away. Jacob's sons came to the slaughter and plundered the city, because their sister had been defiled. They took their flocks, herds, donkeys, and whatever was in the city, and in the field. They captured their possessions, dependents, and wives, and plundered everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me, making me odious to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are few in number. If they unite against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed." But they answered, "Should we treat our sister like a prostitute?" And that is Genesis chapter 34. All right, so I mentioned that some translating difficulty. There's some difficulty in translation here within this text. The main issue being with what exactly is going on. Again, the way that this the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible, translates it is that Shechem, his offense was that he raped Dinah, that he forcefully took her against her will and threw himself upon her. Again, with the idea here is again, this is completely against Dinah's will. The Hebrew word here is the word anah, and it's interesting that as you look at that word throughout the Old Testament text, it does in a couple of instances, such as 2 Samuel 13 and Lamentations 5, it does mean rape. Again, our concept of this offense, that you would forcefully overtake someone else in a sexual manner. But there are a number of occasions in which it does not mean that. Instead, it is just the idea of defilement, of inappropriate sexual misconduct. You can see that in a couple of places in Deuteronomy 22. That's mentioned in the couple of verses 23 and 24. Deuteronomy 22 verses 33 and 34. There is this word used where a man and a woman, both of them are stoned for their sexual behavior. Well, would a woman, an innocent woman, be stoned whenever she had done nothing wrong? Well, the answer there would be no. There's a second instance in verses 28 and 29 where this word is used again, where this man anahs a virgin, and in that case, he is forced then to take her as a wife. So the question is, would a girl be forced to marry her rapist? And also, would a rapist desire to marry someone that he had just raped? Again, there's difficulty there in understanding anah meaning rape whenever it is not specified in that text. But then there is a section in between there in verses 25 through 27 in which it explicitly mentions rape, but actually does not use that Hebrew word anah. So again, there is some difficulty here in the translation. There's some wiggle room in this translation. At the very least, it indicates that this word does not always mean rape. And with that, even with that the case, so the CSB translators have chosen to render it as such. So they are not just making a translating, but they're making an interpretation upon that as well. Again, that's just how Bible translation works. You have options sometimes in the translation. I'm going to suggest that what happened here was not rape, but that it was instead Shechem seduced her. That Shechem again spoke tenderly to her. He loved her and spoke tenderly to her, and they had a fling basically. I think some of the support for that is verse number 1, that Dinah went to see some of the young women in the area. That's not good behavior. She went to go hang out with the Canaanite women, with the pagan women. And then she was basically friends then with the Canaanites. Well, she gets involved with one of the very influential young men of the city, of the land. Again, you can see exactly how this would happen. And I think their behavior after this doesn't seem to me like behavior that you would display following a rape. But instead, you have infatuation and this, again, a fling type of idea here that they want to build upon. So obviously, pagans are not going to have the morals that the people of God you would hope would have, even though within the story, the moral lines are certainly blurred based upon everything that takes place. But Shechem and Hamor want to intermarry with Jacob because of this. And the idea for them is that, well, whenever you do this, it will help you out. It'll help us out. Verse number 9, please give her to him as a wife. My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Again, that doesn't seem like rapist language to me, and more so infatuation, and again, young love in a sense, almost like a Romeo and Juliet type of idea. But here Hamor is wanting them to come together and to form this alliance, basically based upon this intermarrying. Live with us, the land is before you, settle here, move about, and acquire property. Shechem even steps up and says, just grant me this favor. I'll do whatever you say. Demand a high compensation, demand a high gift, whatever you ask me. I just want the girl to be my wife. Again, the language just doesn't line up with the way I think I do not believe it lines up with the way they have translated. I think there is a different thing that has taken place here. But regardless of what it is, there was still a sexual activity that took place between the family of Abraham and these pagans. And Jacob, and especially his sons, are not very happy with this. Notice it's Jacob's sons that are really doing the negotiation here. Mentioned a number of times previously that the sons and the brothers were often the ones that were involved in the giving away of a daughter and a sister within a particular family. Here they're doing that, and their negotiation is based upon the issue of circumcision. Now, for them, they could be coming at from the standpoint of, circumcision is the sign of the covenant. We cannot intermarry people who are not engaged in the covenants. Therefore, you have to do this. That could be that could be a way in which it is read. And of course, the Hivites are not going to know anything about the covenant. They just see this as, okay, if that's what it takes in order to make this happen, then we're willing to do that. And Shechem and Hamor show themselves to be very, very politically savvy, because they're going to go to the city. They're going to go to the gates of the city. Again, that's where the business of the town would have been carried out. And they're going to say, hey, we can have this relationship. We can have this intermarrying with his family, and they've got a lot of livestock. They've got a lot of possessions. Their animals become ours. All we got to do is just go through this process. I mean, to me, that's not just a whole, all you got to do is this, but it seems as if this was something that they would agree upon, again, based upon the fact that they would have a lot gained from this relationship between them and Jacob's family. So they go through with the circumcision of everybody, and on the third day, when the pain of the recovery would be at its worst, well, here comes Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, not just by Jacob, but by Leah as well, and they kill everybody. They take out their revenge. And notice again what takes place here, that they took Dinah from Shechem's house and went away. Why was Dinah in the house? Why was Dinah already with her if this was our concept of rape? Again, I just don't think that's the issue at play here. I think this is her going on her own, getting too comfortable with the pagans, and it leading to the situation as it were. They take the Simeon and Levi are the ones that do the killing, but it seems as if some of the other brothers come and do more. They plunder the city. They take the flocks and the herds and the donkeys and everything, the possessions, the dependents, the wives. They probably became slaves or were sold off as slaves. And after doing all this, after getting this revenge, after avenging the honor of their sister, notice Jacob's upset here. Jacob's mad about this. And if we go back, I didn't mention it specifically, but whenever Jacob heard what Shechem had done with his daughter, that she had defiled his daughter, or he had defiled his daughter, which is probably a better translation, honestly, because that gives probably a more accurate idea of what takes place here. But after he does that, he remains silent until they return. He doesn't do anything. But here he does something. Here he gets mad because he says, you have brought trouble upon me, making me odious to the inhabitants of the land, to the Canaanites and the Perizzites. We are few in number. If they unite against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed. Well, what happened to that faithfulness that Jacob had shown previously? What happened to the time that he had spent in the presence of angels and the significance of that? Well, Jacob, again, I don't think shows himself as being in a moment of great faithfulness here. He should have trusted in the Lord. He should have spoken up originally, honestly. He should have shut the thing down. He should have done as his father and grandfather showed, the need for his family not to intermingle with the Canaanites and to form alliances with these pagans. He should have done that originally. But it seems as if he was scared and he didn't want that trouble. So he's going to let it go on. But the brothers like, no, we should not allow him to treat our sister like a prostitute. We shouldn't let him treat her as if she's easy to take advantage of. We're not just going to give her away for some kind of payments. We're not going to do that. Now, Jacob's mad at him here. And in fact, there's going to be further punishment later on in Genesis chapter 49, where Simeon and Levi are going to, in a sense, be cursed. And again, they're going to be punished for their behavior here in Genesis chapter 34. But I do just want to go back and just recognize again, this is my interpretation of the story. There are plenty who would disagree on this, and that's fine. It's one of those difficult texts where it can be read a couple different ways. Again, I think the way that I'm reading this is, I think, most consistent throughout the story. But again, I recognize there could be disagreements. But here's what I do want to go back to. I want to go back to Jacob originally. He should have spoke up. He should have spoke up. He should have decried the behavior. If I'm reading this right, and Dinah was involved with this, if she went along with it willingly, then she should have been reprimanded. The whole situation should have been reprimanded. He should have told these pagans, no, we are not going to intermarry with you. You are destined for cursing and failure. This is our land. We'll have it one day. We're not going to do that. But by him as a leader not stepping up and doing the right thing, it led to greater problems later on. And that, I think, is the lesson for us to take away. I mean, yeah, there's lessons here from Dinah. Don't intermingle with the world. Don't intermingle with those who are sinful and pagans. But Jacob, as the leader, he could have put an end to this very quickly. Yet his inaction, his remaining silence, led to the trouble that we find here. Now, again, fortunately, this is not the first time we've seen issues like this. We're going to see them again later on in chapter 38, whenever we read about the story of Tamar. And we're just going to see again, the road to Jesus is sometimes an ugly one. And yet God will take even these situations and use them for good and bring about the result in which he desires to bring about. Appreciate you tuning in for this reading on this Saturday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow as we read together from Genesis chapter 35, as we'll be looking at Jacob's return to Bethel, and then we're going to see some deaths that take place within the story. Rachel's death is going to be talked about. So is Isaac's death. Let me double check, make sure we're just doing 35 tomorrow. I have this sneaky suspicion that we're doing 35 and 36, but let me double check here real fast. Make sure I have this right. No, that's right. We're doing 35 and 36. So we'll look at that. And then we're also going to see a genealogy in chapter 36, which is going to be a reading of a bunch of names that you're going to get to have a good laugh at me as I try to pronounce them. But we'll do that tomorrow. Hope that you can tune in then. Take care and God bless.